closer, or whatever you think. Hari Om, that's up. I think the glitch in my note program has been fixed after 2 months. You have your Dattatreya Avadhuta Gita? Yes. I got a stack of books today. So. A little Amrita. There was a Mataji, Swami Mangalananda. She lived at the up in Northern California at Ashram. She went and came down, and I had a home program. And I mentioned, I need a little, by drinking some coffee, I get some Shakti. Right, and then she said, I don't mean to burst her bubble, Swamiji, but it's caffeine, not Shakti. So maybe it's not, I don't know exactly what it is, but apparently it's not Shakti. So. I need Shakti and caffeine, apparently. All right. Om Mangalam Gurudevaya Devyam Atriksha Mangalam Mangalam Bhakta Brindevyo Sarvalokaya Mangalam Om Stapakaya Chidharmasya Sarvadharma Sarupini Avatar Varishtai Ramakrishnaya Mangalam Om Sarashiva Samarambam Shankaracharamajamasmarachara Prayantam Vande Gurum Paramparam Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Deva Maheshwara Guru Deva Param Brahman Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Om Bhadrakali Namo Nityam Saraswati Namo Namaha Veda Viranga Vedanta Vijastana Evacha Sri Ganesha Sharad Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om Jai Ma. So I was going to continue and we are continuing on the Kali Sahasranama. We only have a few more weeks before we take a break from this topic, and Swami in January, mid-January and February, March, revered Swami Chaitananda will be here giving classes on Saturday nights. So I want to keep doing as many more names as possible, but today is a special day. Today is Purnima. It's of course a beautiful full moon, and it's like many of these auspicious days, it's multi-vocalic. There's many holidays celebrated today according to tradition. The most common, and I mean, I can't say anyway, the one that's being emphasized here is Dattatreya Jayanti. We have this beautiful traditional painting of Guru Dattatreya, and a murti of Dattatreya that was given by one of our devotees years ago. And then below, there is some silver padukas. And the symbol of Dattatreya, he's usually worshipped, it's like Shiva's worshipped in the Shivalingam, and Tripura Sundari in the Sri Yantra, like this. So generally, Dattatreya is usually worshipped in the traditional padukas, the Guru padukas. So we have special padukas for Dattatreya, representing Guru, but also our own Guru's padukas. It's a very common thing. We like I have padukas of my Sannyas Guru, of my Diksha Guru. We have the padukas, like we worship privately in our room. It was our our prized possession, and it's very interesting why we worshipped the padukas. Of course, we feel the lotus feet of our Guru has touched them, so they're holy. That's the devotional thing, but also they're very symbolic also. Because the paduka is what the Guru stands upon, right? So what he stands upon is the tradition it's a lineage, the tradition, the teachings, the practices, the understanding, the realizations of the whole lineage. So it's a perfect symbol of Guru. Who even when he's not standing on them, even if the Guru leaves his body, even if the Guru leaves the path, that also happens sometimes, leaving some orphans, right? but the tradition remains. The padukas remain. And so there's many stories of Guru Dattatreya's original padukas, or different incarnations of Dattatreya have left padukas. He disappeared, but his padukas are still there, right? And in different places there's places you can go and see his padukas. So he says the Guru's missing. He's disappeared, but the padukas, the tradition, he left a tradition. That's the thing. A guru may leave in these great souls, like this is an ancient yogi. Dattatreya is an ancient yogi, but he's there in his tradition, right? So that's very important. And so Dattatreya is very, very. So there's about the multivocality of the day, right? It's also in some places today is worshipped or is honored as Annapurna Jayanti, right? And so the goddess Annapurna is worshipped on this day. And that's another important one. In some traditions, is Bhairava Jayanti. We celebrated Bhairava Jayanti last month, Mahakal Bhairava, but there's also Bhairava Jayanti is also, by some traditions, is listed on today also. Anything like that, auspicious day. And Dattatreya, we have, it's an ancient yogi and there's ancient stories and competing narratives, or a variety of narrative. But a very common one is that he's born on a Wednesday, right? We know that's why, as far as the day of the week for Dattatreya is Wednesday. Right, on Wednesday. Sri Ramakrishna was also born on the Wednesday. And either on Purnima or on Pradosha. Yesterday was Pradosha. So it's a cusp of Pradosha, the 13th day, and Purnima. So yesterday we celebrated Pradosha, today. So it can be worshipped, he can be honored on either one of these days. And because our topic right now, our topic over the years has been the Kali Sahasranama. I'm trying to remember a few weeks ago I mentioned also, somebody was asking where the source of the Kali Sahasranama that we're using. And I can't find, I don't exactly know the exact text. The text itself we have, like it comes from this Purana or that Purana, I'm not sure. But I remember my first talk I gave years and years ago, listening to the opening slokas before the Kali Sahasranama, I mentioned spoken by Dattatreya. So there's a tradition that even the Kali Sahasranama perhaps is given by Guru Dattatreya. The Lalita Sahasranama, right, is also taught by Guru Dattatreya. So important, right? And so I'm going to give a little bit of details about his life, his history, some of his textual traditions, right, to meditate upon this great Guru. And then hopefully end it where he himself is telling us to study and chant the Kali Sahasranama, Lita Sahasranama, these texts. So justifying what we're doing, our project here, even in his radical tradition. So I'll start. There's a mantra. I think this is from. It's called the Dattatreya Stotam, but I'm trying to remember. It's spoken by Narada Muni, and I don't remember which it's from. Maybe I can. I didn't write it down, but I know. Like one Purana, it's there. Forget the Purana, but this is a nice dhyan sloka or meditation verse on Guru Dattatreya. Digambaraya divaya divya rupa drayacha shabotita parabrahma Dattatreya namostute. Digambaraya. So these are describing a very distinct iconographic feature. Digambara, he's naked. Of course, in this poster, right, he's dressed in yellow. Not just he's not naked, right? Very, very. It's actually unusual. All the mantras describe him as naked. He's like a Baba, a sadhu, completely unattached and unbounded, right? But almost no paintings or images show him naked. Partly just to the standards of iconography in Indian tradition. But also he's been covered, right? Usually at least with a kopin, right? But when they dress him in yellow like this, right, it means that he's Vishnu. So there's iconography has a language. So if you see him in tiger skin, you go, oh, that's showing that he's Shiva, right? Very common you see him is in yellow, even though there are some mantras from Vaishnava Puranas that describe him dressed in yellow cloth, right? That's probably where this poster is coming from. And we'll describe why he's connected to Vishnu. That's from the Bhagavatam and other texts, described as an incarnation of Vishnu. Right? Digambaraya divyaya, naked. And so Digambara, actually a few days ago, last week on Kali Sahasranama, we were talking about this name, Digambara, that she who is Ma Kali is also, one of her names is Digambari, right? That she is also considered, and Digambara, it means naked, right? But it's a poetic term. And dig means directions. The digpalas are, Indra, Agni, Yama, Naritri, Varuna, Vayu, Kubera, Shiva, Brahma, and Vishnu. These are the gardens of the 10 cardinal directions. Cardinal directions are a different thing. You say something out loud, it doesn't sound right when you say it, Cardinal directions. Digambara means she's clad in the directions. Kali is clad in directions. Dattatreya is clad in the directions, which means that directions are north goes, where's north? North goes infinitely in that direction, right? And east goes infinitely in that direction, right? So whereas she's clad in the infinite directions, she's infinite. Her body is infinite, and therefore only the directions can cover her. Or another way of saying that nothing can cover her. She's infinite, she's unbounded. And so sometimes poetic English translation is sky-clad, right? And that she's clothed and that she's clothed in the sky. It's a poetic thing that the sky is infinite, like the sky. Of course, the sky is not infinite, right? But it's a poet in symbolic poetry, right? So the same things that Kali, characteristics that are attributed to Kali as Digambari, right? The same characteristics are attributed to Dattatreya as Digambara, right? Divya Rupa Drayacha. You are shining. Your form, which is uncovered, right, is shining with divinity, right? Shodotita Parabrahme. You are and who are you? You are that eternal Param Brahman, the Supreme Brahman itself. To that, Dattatreya, Namostute, I bow. Nama Astute. So we think, it's like, a man who was, yogi, we have a poster of him. If he's a historical character, let's say he lived 5,000 years ago, right? So if he may have been, and maybe the tradition is that he wasn't like a naked sadhu, right? So that's an appropriate description. But when you start saying, but actually it's not the man we're talking about necessarily, it's Param Brahman. So the quality of Digambara is describing a human that's uncovered, a Naga Baba, right? A type of monk is a Digambara Baba. And the Jains also have Digambari sect, where there's a Shvetambara and Digambara, the white clad. Certain Jain monks wear white, other ones are naked. So it's a type of monk, right? But here it's actually referring, obviously, he's Param Brahman. So it's actually glorifying Guru Dattatreya, it's actually describing the supreme truth, right? And that's important because Dattatreya represents in so many traditions the Guru, or the original Guru. So the original Guru is like, so we can, like myself, in my yogic lineage, we can trace I can only remember, we remember the names of 4 or 5 in our line. Some people there's traditions that can recite 1,000 gurus, right? They're unbroken like that. These are, right? We know we have thousands of gurus, but we can only, I can remember, we remember the names of 4 because they were wandering, right? So, a sadhu comes in town, initiates somebody and goes and then leaves, and you don't know, like who's your guru, who's his guru, those details get lost, right? So like my own sannyas guru, Swami Omanand Saraswati, his guru, Vishudevanand Saraswati, his guru, Yogi Chandi Baba, also known as Sri Dayananda Saraswati, his guru, Swami Yoganand Saraswati, and after that, who his guru is, we don't know the names. My brother disciple, Swami Paramanand, he wrote a biography of our Param Guru, Yogi Chandi Baba, and in the introduction, he's bowing to our gurus. We bow to my yoga gurus, Swami Vishudevananda, his guru, Sri Dayananda Saraswati, his guru, Yogananda, and then to the long line of gurus, right, that stretches into ancient times, right, whose names may have been forgotten. I love this line, right, but whose teachings have been transmitted, right? So it's also like the teachings have been passed down, the lineage has been passed down. In a certain, in other words, saying the shoes have been passed down, right? But the names of the whose people who are standing on those shoes sometimes get lost, right? So we can trace our line. We believe we can trace our line all the way back to Dattatreya. That's our in the Akkadas. You know the Akkadas? The Akkadas are these ancient, they go back, they're older than us, they're old traditions of Naga Babas. These are the naked sadhus, the warrior Babas. And there's there's many Akkadas. There's Vaishnava Akkadas, there's Sikh Akkadas, there's Udasana Akkadas, right? And there's, but most of the Akkadas are Dashnami. These are the sannyasis of Shankara's non-dualistic Advaita order, right? It's said that Shankara, as the legend goes, when Shankara, Adiguru Shankaracharya established his order, right? He went and preached, and philosophically defeated opponents, and slowly, started a whole movement on Advaita Vedanta, and he established monastic centers in 4 or 5 places, right? And put his main disciples as seat holders, and that we can trace our line back to one of those people also, to who's the acharya, to Sureshacharya, right? One of Shankaracharya's disciples. Our order comes down from him also. And he organized, but he organized already existing sadhus, right? And just convinced them, you join my order, right? So it's not like he had like 10,000 disciples. He probably had dozens of disciples, but he had 10,000 people under influence, as the tradition goes, right? So so these are older lineages, all kinds of lineages, right? And so much later, when the Akkadas were established, right, the belief is that there were within the Dashnam, within the Shankara's order, they gathered according to not forgotten ancient lineages. So in the Juna Kara, the Kara that we have some connection to, there's 52 lineages. All of them go back to Guru Dattatreya, is a belief, right? The 52, there's only 10 names, right? But there's actually, we can trace, I mean, I can't, like we've forgotten, but there are people who know the details of all these different lineages. So that we trace our lineages back to Guru Dattatreya. The not yogis, right? We got Hatha Yoga from the not yogis, most likely, right? Not yogis also are clearly believe that they come from Guru Dattatreya. Matsendranath, one of the great founders, he believed that he was a disciple of Dattatreya, right? So the not yogi comes, that means Hatha Yoga comes from Dattatreya. If, at least traditionally. Historically, I mean, you can. There's historical things to consider, right? But the traditional understanding, if you ask a not yogi, where does the not yogi, the most ancient Hatha Yoga texts, like Hatha Yoga Pradipika and Griha Samhita, Shiva Samhita, these are the traditional texts. These are from not traditions, and they believe, we got it from Matsendranath and the Navanath, the 9 Naths, and beyond them from Guru Dattatreya. So that's a claim that it comes down from Dattatreya. Sri Vidya, the worship of Tripura Sundari, is also traces their lineage back to Guru Dattatreya, right? The revelation of as I mentioned, the Lita Sahasrama and Sri Vidya mantras and those type of pujas were given, as tradition goes, by Guru Dattatreya to Parshuram, Bhagavan Parshuram, the incarnation of Vishnu, and it passed down. The whole method of the ritual and sadhana within the Sri Vidya tradition is attributed to Dattatreya also. Right, so there's tantric lineages, there's Advaitic lineages, there's yogic lineages, right? All claiming Dattatreya as their source. So interesting, right? Another, and we'll go through some of the texts. I'm talking and not looking at my. This is how we never finish our classes on time, and we never finish our notes. I shall try to be disciplined. We can just mention his name, Dattatreya. Right? Datta means given, right? And so he was given by the Trinity. So the traditional. This is the most. There's so many different stories, different narratives. They don't always match, right? But there's a dominant story. So we'll mention the main story. The main story is that Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva either were born as Dattatreya. That's why he's shown iconographically with 3 heads. Whether or not he actually had 3 heads, Swami Chaitanya always says, how did he sleep? It'd be very difficult to sleep if you have 3 heads or 4 arms, right? Right? He probably, there's other descriptions of describing, the oldest descriptions of Dattatreya, the oldest mantras, do not describe 3 heads. Describes 1 head, like most yogis, right? Right? The 3 heads is a later development to show that he's an incarnation of Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. So incarnation of Brahma Vishnu Shiva, or the Shakti of Brahma Vishnu Shiva. So Brahma Vishnu Shiva, Trimurti, gave themselves, right, to these parents, right? And the parents were divine Atri Rishi and Atreya Rishi, Atri Rishi and Mata Anusuya. I always want to put an R in there. See, I did it again. Anusuya, right? Mataji and her sage husband, Atri. And so Atri becomes Atreya, right? And so Dattatreya is that which was given to Atri Rishi, right? So that's his name, Dattatreya, right? So the text mentioned that he was born on a Wednesday, on the 14th day, 14th day, which is today, full moon, just before the full moon of Margashisha this month. The year is not mentioned, right? This is very long ago, right? And it says that as a very young boy, most stories is that he wandered off as a yogi, as a naked wandering yogi in search of the absolute truth. Right, and so the tradition goes that he spent most of his time. There's certain places in India that have a lot of devotion to Dattatreya, right, as a devotional deity, and so these are the places that are associated with his life on earth, right, and the earliest version of his life on earth. So through Mysore, through Maharashtra, through Gujarat, up to the into the Narmada, along the Narmada River, and so you see right now. The biggest devotion as a devotional or relationship with Dattatreya is in Gujarat and Maharashtra, and a lot of the saints that are associated with Dattatreya are Maharashtrian saints, right? So I'll mention here, skipping ahead. There's a verse in the Bhagavatam that describes Dattatreya as an incarnation of Vishnu, right? This is from the fourth book of the Bhagavatam. Atre Pantya Anasuya Trin Janne Suyashana Sutam Dattam Durvasanam Somam Atmesham Brahma Sambhavam. So Anasuya and Atri Muni, these divines like that, gave birth to three famous sons. Right, so this is what I was described in the Bhagavatam, who were partial manifestations of Vishnu, Shiva, and Brahma. Right, so this is like this. Soma. So these the three sons are Soma, Dattatreya, and Durvasa. Right, they're mentioned. Right, Soma was a partial manifestation of Brahma, the creator. Dattatreya was a partial representation or manifestation of Vishnu. And Durvasa was a partial manifestation of Shiva. That's what the verse says, right? So you already have him. So you see, the Bhagavatam is already claiming he's an incarnation of Vishnu. Older texts does not have him connected to Vishnu, right? This is already we're giving a little bit of critical analysis of text. I don't want to be disrespectful to traditional scriptural understandings, right? But most the way it's generally understood is that there is as Dattatreya's popularity came, he had to be different sects claimed him as their own. So here he's showing, he's actually this very famous yogi that everybody's worshiping. He's actually an avatar of Vishnu, or a partial avatar of Vishnu. So in this verse, they had three sons, right? Soma, Dattatreya, and Durvasa, right? Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, right? So that's one version of the story. Other versions of the story is actually Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva were all born as one son. Right, so that's you can see how the two have come down. Well, I'll go back to this in a little bit, but so I'll tell you the popular story and a very sweet and meaningful story. Let's see if I get it right. Parvati, Saraswati, and Lakshmi, the wives of Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, right, were discussing amongst themselves, right? You hear all the story. A lot of the stories start with Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva arguing who's supreme, who's more powerful, who's original, So similarly, this is a story where the Shaktis, the three Devis, we have the Trimurti, the three Devis are discussing amongst themselves who's a better wife, who has more of this Stri Dharma, right? Who's the most devoted wife, right? And they're arguing amongst themselves, right? And so I'm forgetting a few little details. I'm forgetting. Forgive me. Where they get told actually this Anasuya, she's the greatest. She has the most devotion to her husband like this. The vratam, the commitment to her husband, right? He says, how is it? We're literally the goddesses of the world, right? It's like we're the original, we're the prototype of wifeness, right? It's like, how is it that this other yogi's, this ascetic's wife is more devoted to her husband, right? And so they go to test. So Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva arrange a test to this, right? So they show up as three yogis, three sadhus at her door. Bhavati Bhiksham Dehi, please feed us, right? And she said, okay. And she comes, and of course, she knows how to treat guests and sadhus. So yes, I shall definitely feed you. She said, oh no, you'll have to feed us naked, right? That's our. We only get fed by women who are naked. And this, you imagine, this is a little bit of a shocking thing for an ascetic's Brahmin ascetic's wife, right? And so she says, my husband's not here. Wait till my husband to come back, right? He's doing tapasya. When he comes back, I'll feed you. No, we're hungry now. And if you don't feed us, it'll be a great crime, right? To not feed a sadhu or three sadhus, right, who are hungry, begging for food. You're making us wait. It'll be a great sin. So she was in a predicament and says, but I cannot appear naked in front of any man besides my husband. This is the Patni Vrata, right? So she said, okay, I shall do it, right? But all of you have to appear as children, as babies, because babies have no body consciousness, right? So they agree. They all took on three little tiny baby forms, right? Prepubescent little babies, right? And she took off her clothes and she fed them very lovingly, like a mother feeds her children. Right. So, and then they were so impressed by this, right? That says that we want to be born as your sons. So then you either have the version where the born is Soma, Dattatreya, and Durvasa, or a version where they're all born as one son, as Dattatreya, right? So that story is very interesting because it shows that of course it has nakedness in it. She had to appear naked, right? But that means that her nakedness and appearing naked in front of these children, if the children have no body consciousness. So there's different types of nakedness, and most nakedness in modern culture is not a sign of transcending of body consciousness, right? So this means that Dattatreya's nakedness, a symbol of it, is that he is beyond body consciousness. I one time had a conversation with a famous contemporary sadhu. Maybe you know Baba Rampuri. He wrote a very famous book on the sadhu world. We had some correspondence. I've met him a few times, but we had a correspondence. And one thing he wrote, I was trying to understand something of the Dattatreya tradition and the Naga tradition. He's a Naga Baba, Mahant in the Naga Baba tradition. He says, Digambara does not mean a naked man. It means beyond body consciousness. Right? That's what and so that's what it means. Somebody to appear naked like this, symbolically or actually, it means it's beyond body consciousness. So his very birth, and the first word of this verse is Digambara Divya Rupaya, right? Shining with divinity and beyond body consciousness. That should be his nature, right? And so I mentioned, so the Sri Vidya tradition claims him, Tantra claims him, the Nat Yogis claim him, the Nagababas of most lineages claim him, hardcore versions of Advaita claim him, right? The Bhakti lineages claim him. And you see by saying Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, right? That means, okay, who can be born in Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva? Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva are the three guna. They call them in the Bhagavatam. It says they're called guni avatars, guna avatars. They're the avatars of Vishnu, of the Lord as Rajas, Sattvas, and Rajas. Rajas, Sattva, and Tamas. This is the sign of Tamaguna is not remember the word Tamas. I need Shakti or caffeine, apparently. have to wake up, so please forgive me. We're getting there. Right. So actually, when we say, with that, we started reciting verses, the Guru Pranam verse. We say Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Devo Param Brahman, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. It's a very that the Guru is Brahma, the Guru is Vishnu, Guru is Shiva. Now, I have great faith and love and respect and honor and veneration for my Guru, right? But I won't make a strong argument that he created the universe at the beginning of time, that he's Brahma, right? Or that he sustains the universe and incarnates in order to save Dharma in every age, or he will destroy the universe at the end of time, right? Right? The one who manifests is Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva as creation, Srishti, Sthiti, Vinashana, as creation, sustenance, and destruction, as Rajaguna, Sattvaguna, and Tamaguna. That is that's being defined as Guru. And then it says Param Brahma. Actually, the Guru is Parabrahma. Parabrahma is the infinite beyond conception, as well as the unmanifested, the ground of being, and then Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, its manifestation, right? So what's being worshipped as Guru is Brahman, Parabrahma, just like that verse in from the Dattatreya Stotram, Parabrahman. So I believe that even the Guru Brahman, Guru Vishnu, Guru Deva Maheshwara may refer to the three-headed Dattatreya as Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, and the Supreme Brahman, right? There are a tradition, especially in Maharashtra and Gujarat, where his worship is very, like I mentioned, very popular, of that he's incarnated. They say he's always incarnated. Right? There's always an incarnation of that. There's modern people now that, oh, my Guruji is Guru. Our Guruji who lives in Maharashtra, he's Guru Dattatreya himself. Maybe. I mean, I hope you found I hope we all find our Guru Dattatreya. He's not my Dattatreya, but he's somebody else's Dattatreya. But from very famous ones, maybe you've heard, is one Shripad Vallabha. Right, he was Sripad Vallabha, the very famous Maharashtrian saint. Then there's Narasingha Saraswati, right? And if you look them up, you can see pictures, paintings, and if you see them, you say, "Oh, I've seen posters of them." They're known characters, and if you're not Maharashtrian or Gujarati, you may not know who they are, right? And then in a little more contemporary times, you have Shirdi Sai Baba is considered, by many, our picture. It got damaged, but we had a beautiful poster painting of Shirdi Sai Baba. Behind him is Guru Dattatreya. So it's that tradition. There's many ways to think of him, right? And there's a bunch of saints around the same place and time and loose tradition of Shirdi Sai Baba, like Narasingha Saraswati, Manik Prabhu, Swami Samart, and a few, and even Washu was watching a video today of the guy from the Who used to worship him. Who's that? Mahir Baba. Mahir Baba is a silent saint of the 70s, was famous in the 70s, right? But he comes from the same group of Datta avatars, that world of this type of Avadhuta, Dattatreya Avadhuta. So the original Dattatreya, if there's an original Dattatreya that I mentioned in the Bhagavatam, it describes how he's born. There's a whole bunch of verses. I'm going to skip those verses. In the Bhagavatam, there's a famous story on. The Srimad Bhagavatam mentions how he's born to Aitreya Rishi. In another part, that's in the fourth skanda. In another part, I'm forgetting just now, but another part, I've given a class many years ago on this day, right? And so if you go on our podcast and you click around, there's a Dattatreya's 24 Gurus. There's a talk I gave on it. So I gave a more elaborate talk on this particular aspect. And so there's a story of a king, King Yadu, from the Mahabharata, mentioned the Mahabharata and mentioned the Bhagavatam. King Yadu went hunting. He went to the forest and he came across some sadhu. And the sadhu was just laying there on the ground, naked, right? But completely happy. And he says that laying on the ground is a type of tapasya. It's called, I forget the name of it, it says like a snake, right? It's like we go out and we're hungry, we go out and get food. We have to get a job. We have to get good food. Where to go to eat. You have to arrange our food, right? And or if you're a sadhu and you don't have money, then you have to go, like Dattatreya himself went, to Vishnu and Shiva, says, Bhavati Bhikshan Devi, give us some alms. We go begging our food, right? But there's a vow that like a snake just waits until food to come to it. Maybe it's not. Probably snakes go hunting, right? But the idea, the symbol of a snake, it sits in its hole and just waits, and eventually food will come to it, right? So some sadhus, I've seen a sadhu like this, right? Who just sat there staring at the sun, right? I saw him at the Mahakumbha 12 years ago. We went to go see him, and he literally just sat there, just staring at the sun, not eating. And somebody came up and took and put this against his face, and he goes, and then they opened his mouth, and they poured milk into his mouth, and he wouldn't do anything. Food would just come to him. He's that type. So Yadu met some sadhu just laying there waiting for food to come to him, not concerned about anything. So you can see that's a very poor, pathetic person, right? But he saw this person fully happy and blissed out. Ananda Sagara, an ocean of peace, of bliss, right? And he asked him, right, how did you get this way? He says, I'm self-satisfied. I'm paraphrasing some things, right? He says, but you must have learned it from somebody, right? You can't just get this way spontaneously, right? And so nobody knows who Dattatreya's guru was, right? So because he's considered like the original guru, there has to be a first Adi guru, right? So who was his guru? He says, did anybody teach you this? He says, and nobody taught me this. Nobody taught you this? Actually, everything's taught me this, right? He says, actually, I've learned from everything. And so this is the thing is sometimes disciples have a really good guru and they still don't learn anything. right. But here's somebody, if you're the proper disciple, you can learn everything from anybody. There's always, everything is a teaching, right? And he mentions that that he remembers, actually everything in this world is my guru. I can mention 24 specifically, right? And then I'll give the list. My 24 gurus are the earth, water, air, fire, sky, moon, sun, a pigeon, a python, the ocean, a moth, a bee, a honey gatherer, and somebody who collects honey from the forest, right? An elephant, a deer, a fish, the dancing girl Pingala, right, is a prostitute, the dancing girl Pingala, a raven, a child, a maiden, a serpent, an arrow maker, a spider, and a beetle. These are Jai Guru Maharaj, Guru Brahman, Guru Vishnu. These are my gurus, right? And so then that gets, and he says, how are they your gurus? And then this is what I give in that longer talk. I'll read a version from Swami Shivananda, a summary of these chapters, just because today is the day to think of these things, right? I learned patience from doing good. I'll just use a few for an example. It's too long. I learned patience in doing good to others from the earth, for it endures every injury man commits on its surface, and yet it does him good by producing crops, trees, etc. We treat the earth so badly, yet it still gives plants. It still gives us water. Still like that. So seeing that is that I learned how to be patient, like the earth, and tolerant, and do good to the world, right? From water, I learned the quality of purity. Just as pure water clean water cleans other dirty things, right? Is a sage who is pure and free from selfishness, lust, egotism, anger, and greed, purifies all who come in contact. So from water, I learned how to purify, right? Air, though air moves everywhere, right? It never gets attached to anything, right? So from air, I learned how to be detached, right? So you can see everything in nature can be a teacher, right? Just as fire burns bright, so also sage should be glowing with the splendor of knowledge and tapas, right? The air, the stars, the clouds, etc., all are contained in the sky, but the sky does not come in contact with any of them. I have learned from the sky that the Atman is all-pervading and yet has no contact with any object. So, there's deep philosophical things he's learned, and so if we have the right mind, we can learn from anything. So it goes, I'll read them because they're We should all learn these things. The moon is in itself always complete, but appears to decrease or increase. Today is a full moon, right? On account of varying shadows of the earth upon the moon. I have learnt from this that the Atman is always perfect and changeless, and is only the upadis, or the limiting adjuncts, characteristics, that cast shadows upon it, make it seem like it changes. The moon doesn't change, but appears to change. The Atman also doesn't change, but appears to change. I learned that by looking at the moon. Just as the sun, reflected in various pots of water, appears as so many different reflections, so many different suns, so also Brahman appears different because of the upadis. The body is caused by the reflection through the mind. This is the lesson I learned from the sun. Then these are very interesting. I once saw a fowler. A fowler, I guess, is a hunter who hunts birds, right? A bird hunter, I guess, fowler, right? I once saw a fowler spread a net and caught some pigeons, right? The mother pigeon was very much attached to her children. She did not care to live, so she fell into the net and was caught. The male pigeon was attracted to the female pigeon, so he fell into the net and was caught. From this, I learned that attachment is the cause of bondage. A baby bird was caught, the mother saw it and then was also caught. And then the husband saw the bird and was attracted and was also caught. So he learned that attachment to family and things like that causes one to be caught by Maya, like this. The python does not move about for its food. This is the story. It remains contented wherever it gets, and lies in one place. From this I learned to be unmindful of food and to be contented with whatever I get to eat. It's called ajagara vritti. That's it's a technical term. Just as the ocean remains unmoved, although hundreds of rivers flow into it, so also the wise person should remain unmoved among all kinds of temptations, difficulties, and troubles. This is a lesson I learned from the ocean, my guru. Just as a moth, by being enamored by the brilliance of fire, falls into it and is burnt, so also a passionate person falls in love with a beautiful girl or boy and comes to grief. The control of the senses of sight and to control the sense of sight and to fix the mind on the self. This is the lesson I learned from the moth. Something we learn what not to do from teachers, not just what to do, right? Bees collect honey with great trouble, but a honey gatherer comes and takes away their honey so easily. Even so, people hoard up wealth and other things with great difficulty, but they have to leave them once for all and depart when the Lord of Death takes hold of them. Everything we gather is taken away, just like honey bees are taken, the honey is taken away. From this I have learnt the lesson that it is useless to hoard things. These are sadhu qualities, obviously. The male elephant, blinded by lust, falls into a pit covered over by grass, even when at the sight of a paper-made female elephant. This is old way of hunting. You make a ditch, and you make a trap, and then you put a paper, whether this is actually done, this is what the story says, right? You make a cutout of an elephant, the elephant comes, and oh my God, there's a beautiful female elephant, and it runs and then falls, and that's how you catch an elephant, apparently. If you want to catch an elephant, this is the best way. So the scriptures, it's authorized in the Shastras, right? The male elephant, blinded by the falls into a pit covered over by grass, even at the sight of a paper-made female elephant. It gets caught, enchained, and tortured by the goad, by a goad. Even so, passionate people fall into traps and come to grief. Therefore, one should destroy lust. This is a lesson I learned from the elephant. The deer is enticed and trapped by the hunter through its love of music. Even so, a man is attracted by the music of the lover and is brought to destruction. One should never listen to lewd songs. This is a teaching. This is the lesson I learned from the deer. Just as a fish that is covetous of food falls an easy victim to the bait, so also a man who is greedy for food, who allows his sense of taste to overpower him, loses his independence and easily gets ruined. The greed for food must therefore be destroyed. It is a lesson that I have learned from the fish. You can bait, right? There was a dancing girl named Pingala in the town of Videha. Videha is a town of where Sita was born, right? So she was tired of looking for customers one night. She became hopeless. Here, dancing girl is a code for a prostitute, in case you're missing the reference. Then she was contented with what she, and became hopeless. Then she was contented with what she had and had sound sleep. right? So while she was anxious to get customers, she was agitated. But she said, "Nah, it's enough for today," and then she slept well. So as soon as she became contented, she became peaceful, right? I have learned from that fallen woman the lesson that abandonment of hope leads to contentment. A raven picked up a piece of flesh. This is the one we like. Sri Ramakrishna quoted this one a lot. So this is remember the story of Guru Dattatreya? He'd quote these verses. A raven picked up a piece of flesh, and it was pursued and beaten by other birds. So we've seen it out here. We have ravens and crows. Right today we came upon a murder of crows. Oh great, not a flock, a murder of crows, and we've seen them. They grab something, and as soon as one grabs some fish or some meat like that, all the other crows and birds try to get it from them, right? So, and wherever it goes, it's just being attacked by all the other birds trying to get it, right? It dropped that piece of flesh, and all the birds went after it, and he was left alone, right? From this, I learned the lesson that a man in the world undergoes all sorts of troubles and miseries when he runs after sensual pleasures, and that he becomes as happy as a bird when he abandons sensual pleasures. When you let it go, you're peaceful. The child, also his guru, who sucks the milk is free from all cares, worries, and anxieties, and is always cheerful. I have learnt the virtue of cheerfulness from that child. The parents of a maiden had gone in search of a proper bridegroom for her. The girl was alone in the house. During the absence of the parents, a party of people came to the house to see her on a similar object of reference to offer me. Okay, so I'll tell the story. This is like a 4 paragraph version. I know the story. So people went to potential people to marry a girl, and so in the other room, the girl was making, as the parents were talking about the details of the arranged marriage, and the other room, you heard the girl was making chapatis or grinding something, and she had 2 bracelets, right? And as she did it, click, 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 they're making noise, right? And then she realized, I'm going to ruin my chance. I'm making too much attention to my very old school standards. I forget it. It's not a modern story, right? So she took one of the bracelets off, and then it was silent. From that, I learned that company brings noise. If I have no company, if I live alone, then I'm at peace, right? You make all this. As soon as you have 2 people, if 2 people make a discussion, but actually more likely it's going to make an argument, right? discussion is a pleasant argument sometimes, So I learned that from that. This is a 21. A serpent does not build its hole; it dwells in the holes dug by others. Even so, the sannyasin, the monk, should not build a home for himself. He should live in caves and temples built by others. This is a lesson I learned from a snake. The mind of an arrow maker was once wholly engrossed in sharpening and straightening the arrow. While he was thus engaged, a king passed before his shop with his whole retinue. After some time, the man came to the artisan and asked him whether the king had passed the shop. So he's making an arrow, and a king with a huge retinue came by, probably blowing horns and the whole thing. He said, "Did the king come by?" Right? The artisan replied that he did not notice anything. The fact is that the artisan's mind was solely absorbed in his work, and he did not know what was passing before his shop. I have learned from that artisan the quality of intense concentration of mind. 23. The spider pours out of its mouth long threads and weaves them into cobwebs. It gets itself entangled in its net of its own making. Even so, we make a net of our own ideas and get entangled in them. The wise should therefore abandon all worldly thoughts and think of Brahman only. This is the lesson I have learned from the spider. The bringi, or the beetle, catches hold of a worm, puts it in its nest, and gives it a sting. The poor worm, always fearing the return of the beetle and sting, is thinking constantly of the beetle, and it becomes the beetle itself. This is not a scientific description. This is a belief that a caterpillar thinking of a butterfly becomes a butterfly, or something like that. It's like meditating on something. You become what you meditate upon. It's playing on that. Whatever. Whatever form we constantly think of, we attain that in the course of time. As a man thinks, so he becomes. That's that's right there in the Bhagavatam. We get that in modern New Thought literature and things like that. As one thinks, so one becomes. It's a direct quote from the Bhagavatam. I have learned from the beetle and the worm to turn myself into Atman by contemplating constantly upon it. There's a verse in the Upanishads, one who thinks of the Atman barely becomes the Atman. Right? So these are his 24 gurus, right? The story continues, right? And he gets blessings and teachings, right? But, so, Dattatreya is considered the original guru, the proto-guru, the symbol of the guru, right? But it also shows you what a perfect disciple he is, right? He learned from everything, right? So there's a couple texts I wanted to, running out of time, that's okay, that are famous in the Dattatreya tradition. One is called the Avadhuta Gita, right? And this is a translation by Swami Chaitanya. He did this, I believe he told me, when he was driving back and forth when he was in Hollywood years ago, he'd have to drive between Trabuco and Hollywood and Santa Barbara. So he says it's 2 hours to Trabuco, 1 hour, 1 hour to Hollywood, to Trabuco, and 2.5 hours to Santa Barbara. I shouldn't waste my time. So he put a pillow on his lap and he translated the Avadhuta Gita. Beautiful. There's a couple other. There's 2 or 3 existing good ones. There's another one also published by the Ramakrishna Mission. I think is by Madhavananda. But this is very, very nice, and it has very nice, simple notes. I strongly suggest it if you haven't read it. I can't say I strongly suggest it. Everybody should have it, but I'm not sure how much you should read it. It's at a level of non-dual realization that we can't pretend to have. But by reading it, we contemplate the possibility of such realization, right? So one of our gurus, His Holiness Swami Chidananda, Rishikesh, I was not inserting myself in conversation. I was present, but I was in the back. I didn't say anything. So the group I was in asked a question about, well, how do we make sense of these the Avadhuta Gita verses, right? They're very radical. I don't need to do sadhana, right? Because I'm already the self, right? If I start saying that, then I'll stop doing sadhana, and I still don't know the self, right? So there's danger in this concept. I'm already the self. There's nothing I can do. I can't do anything. I shouldn't do anything. Do anything shows that is illusion, that type of thing. There's neither. And he says no. The Avadhuta Gita it's the outpourings of a sage of supreme consciousness, and it can only really be understood by sage of supreme consciousness. It's for self-realized sages to compare notes, right? But just think we have the notes of self-realized sages, right? So it's pretty valuable, right? Right. The authorship of the text is unknown. It's attributed to Dattatreya. And Avadhuta, the term Avadhuta is a completely liberated soul. That we think, there's different categories of realized soul, like Paramahansa. Paramahansa, we were talking about today. Paramahansa is somebody, like Sri Ramakrishna was called a Paramahansa. Paramahansa means an illumined soul, but it's a technical term, the type of sannyasi. So he's a sannyasi who has no, I'm officially, we're in a Paramahansa lineage, right? So we're officially Paramahansa sannyasi, but we're not really. I wear orange cloth, I have stripes, I wear beads, I carry a danda and a water pot, all these, so that we're acting as Hamsa sannyasis. A Paramahansa sannyasi does not carry a staff, does not wear orange cloth, does not wear beads and stripes and shaved head, right? Doesn't need to. He's beyond those things. There's no external signs. So Sri Ramakrishna also, people go, we heard there's a sadhu here. And they go and they ask me, I heard there's a sadhu. Is there a sadhu here? Oh, I'd love to see that sadhu. Please, if you find him, let me know. Because he was dressed in regular clothes. He had leather sandals. He had a big cushion on his bed. He had a mosquito curtain, right? Right. So he was no signs of a holy man, right? So he was a Paramahansa. So Avadhuta is something, can't say beyond, different than that, right? Avadhuta is somebody who's so beyond it that he cannot follow rules. Not that it's like there's literally no distinction. If you go beyond duality, there's nothing between clean and unclean, right? It's like that, and therefore you cannot make the distinction, right? So an Avadhuta is, their behavior is unconventional or not bound by normal convention, right? And so of other famous Avadhutas in history, there's Nityananda, Sri Chaitanya's one of his main attendants or associates. He's known as Nityananda Avadhuta, right? And also his behaviors was not. I mean, now we've cleaned him up and we have him dancing by Lord Chaitanya, but his behavior was unconventional, right? Not normal monk behavior, right? Avadhuta Dattatreya in his stories is also unconventional, right? He doesn't follow the rules, right? The normal rules, the expectation rules of a holy person. He's an Avadhuta, so that's where they get the title. I'll just read the verse 1 is a very beautiful verse. I'll read it from here. Actually, I have it. It doesn't have the. I read it from here. Verse 1. Ishvara anugraha I didn't write it in the proper transliteration. Ishvara annagrahadeva pumsam advaita vasana mahabhaya paritranat vipranam uppajayate. Ishvara anugraha. So it is through Ishvara's anugraha, only by the grace of God, right? That Advaita Vasana, Pumsa Advaita Vasana, that anybody has the Vasana of Advaita, the experience or the thought of non-duality, right? This Vasana can also mean the thought of non-duality or desire for non-duality, right? The fact that you have any interest, right, to understand the non-dual truth. Most people don't have interest in this. If you have any interest, it is only by the grace of God. So it starts by that only by the grace of God. Right? Only by the grace of God that they rise in the vipraha, in a sage, and thus mahabhaya pavitranat, and liberating one from mahabhaya, the great fear. Now the question is, what is the great fear? Commentary has been written on what is the great fear that the thought of non-duality caused by the grace of God and the wise destroys, right? One, mahabhaya means the fear itself comes from duality. The Upanishad says there is no fear if there is no second, right? So duality itself causes fear. Or people say, oh, it's a fear of rebirth, the fear of samsara, or whatever the fear is great fear is destroyed by thought of, experience of, desire for non-duality, which comes only by the grace of God. And I have a few favorite verses. I just want to give you a taste of a few verses from the Avadhuta Gita. Samyogescha viyogascha vartate na chatena chatena me natvam naham jagannedham sarvam atmaeva kevalam. The sarvam atmaeva kevalam is repeated, so it's a very beautiful term. It says, for us, meaning for him, for all of us, but he's speaking as a self, right? There is neither union nor separation. We're lamenting our separation from God, hopefully, right? I mean, I hope you're all in union with God and you're not lamenting your separation from God. But most of us are not in conscious union of God, and if we're not conscious of the separation, that's not a good sign either, right? But actually, there is neither union nor separation. Right? He's speaking from an optic perspective, right? Right. Neither do I. Why is that? Because I don't exist, and you don't exist, and this world doesn't exist. In Vedanta, there's a big argument with it: Brahma, Jiva, and Jagat. Right? What is Brahman? Who are we as individuals? And what is this world? Right? He's saying none of them exist. I don't exist. You don't exist. This world doesn't exist. Right? Natvam neham jagan sarvam atmeva kevalam. Only the Atman exists, and that alone. The Atman alone exists. Because that's probably a very poetic way of saying it, right? So, for us, there is neither union nor separation, because neither I nor you nor this world exists. The Atman alone exists, or sometimes it's been beautifully translated as the Atman alone abides, right? And there's a beautiful book on teachings and life of Guru Das Maharaj. He's a disciple of Holy Mother, American disciple of Holy Mother. His book is called Atman Alone Abides, based on this verse. These are two of my favorite. The first verse is famous. This is the verse I always think about on this day, right? That imagine that state of consciousness, that there's no separation, because nothing exists except the Atman. It's a pretty radical form of Advaita, for sure. The most radical form of Advaita, right? And in Swami Bhajanananda, if he was here, he's in India right now. We could read his tattoos. He has 2 tattoos, and I'll just read these two tattoos on his arm. I'll do them in English for the sake of time. I am the fire that, now I here is talking as Brahman, right? The self. I am the fire that burns the sins of the one who is without sin. I am the fire that burns the virtue of the one who is without virtue. I am the fire that burns the bondage of the one that is without bondage. I am deathless, wisdom, the taste of nectar, limitless like the sky. And this idea that I am the fire that burns the sin of one who is without sin, right? So actually, when we know there is no sin, sin is not attributed to us. That fire, that knowledge of knowing that we have no sin, is itself a fire that burns sin. It is itself the fire that burns virtue, that burns limitation. It's about the nature of self-knowledge, right? Another one. I am the fire that burns karma of the one who is without karma. I am the fire that burns suffering of the one who is without suffering. When we know that suffering does not affect us, right? That knowledge destroys suffering. That's the idea, right? I am the fire that burns the body of the one who is without a body. I am deathless wisdom, the taste of nectar, limitless like the sky. This jnanam ritam, right? The gagana pamoham. This is the refrain. I think it's repeated maybe 24, 25 times in these verses. It's a beautiful refrain. I'm not this. I am this. But really, whatever it is, I am simply deathless wisdom, nectar, the taste of nectar, the nature of nectar, limitless like the sky. Gagano means with like the sky, right? And so there's another verse that I like. This is a sadhu verse. This is a verse that describes our sadhu tradition, right? The Avadhuta alone, Avadhuta Gita, Dattatreya, or are supposed to be Avadhutas, pure in evenness of feeling, abides happily in an empty dwelling place. Sadhu is supposed to live. Having renounced all, he moves about naked. He perceives the absolute one, the all within the self. So these are very radical descriptions of jnana. This is definitely the shining self, beyond all duality, the fire of awareness that burns everything that it's aware of. The one who's not, like this type of language, and so that this is very common to hear in the Dattatreya tradition. Before I don't want to leave this out. It's not in my notes, but I'm just remembering. There's another category of text called the Yoga Shastra. And there's a Dattatreya Yoga Shastra, Dattatreya Upanishad. It's an Upanishad, listed as an Upanishad, a late Upanishad that describes pretty much the Ashtanga system, the 8 steps of yoga, taught by Dattatreya. So I'm just saying, there's a yogic Vedanta, a claim connected to the Upanishadic Vedic tradition of Dattatreya worship. The mantra, when we first came in, there was a mantra playing, a Dattatreya Mahamantra. It's from that, the first verse of that Yoga Upanishad, the Dattatreya Upanishad. So you have this Upanishad, Yogic Upanishad, you have this extreme non-dualism, dizzying non-dualism, right? But we trace our lineage, my monastic line back to Dattatreya, but even our puja line comes from Dattatreya. Sri Vidya and Kali Puja, these things can be attributed to him. So I want to end with a reading of another important Dattatreya text. I don't know if you've seen Tripura Rahasya, right? This is a version that's published by Ramana Maharishi Ashram, right? Because Ramana Maharishi liked this text. It's a tantric text, right? And it's in 3 sections. This is called the Jnana Kanda, the knowledge. It is full of philosophy, stories, but full of philosophy. Very Advaitic, very much in the style of Ramana Maharishi. That's why the most common publishers of this text is Ramana Ashram, right? He really popularized this text. It's beautiful, and it's a beautiful rendition, beautiful English. A couple other translations that have recently come, but this is the classic one. Available online, you can download it and things like that for free, I'm sure. Right, and you can see it, put your Dattatreya on the cover, right? The text was in 3 chapters. So this is called Jnana Kanda, the knowledge section, philosophical section. There's a section called Acharya Kanda, which has been lost. Charya means behavior. This is the rituals. This probably explained how to do Sri Chakra Puja. Right? It was a tantric ritual manual. It does no longer exist. There's a text that does exist that's used a lot in Sri Vidya, and I'm speaking a little bit beyond my knowledge. I'm trying to summarize ideas that I don't have full scholarly knowledge on, right? But there's a text called the Parashurama Stotram, right? That's a common text, an important text on Sri Chakra Puja. It's most likely very similar, not identical, but very similar to the Acharya Kanda of Tripura Rahasya. Doesn't exist anymore. Some says it was destroyed. Either way, it has not come. There's no existing extant copies, right? But there's, and the third section, or a third section, is called the Mahatmya Kand. Mahatmya means glories, right? Like we have the Devi Mahatmyam. So the glories of Tripura. Tripura is the name for the goddess, right? The goddess of the three worlds, right? The most beautiful, the mother of the three worlds, the wisdom in the three worlds. The Tripura Rahasya means the secret of the three worlds, right? The Rahasya is a secret teaching of the three worlds, right? So who is that Tripura, the goddess? This is the philosophy. The lost text is the ritual, and the Mahatmya is the glory. It's describing beautiful descriptions of the goddess, right? And the importance of worshiping the goddess, right? And that, until very recently, was not available. But now it's available in a big, expensive book. Sri Tripura Rahasya Mahatmya Kanda, Sanskrit text and English translation. It's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful book. I got it years ago. I think we got it through Exotic India. I think if you're interested I think that's probably where we got it. And they have book sales around Christmas if you're interested. 30% off. Free shipping. I'm a good advertiser. We get a lot of stuff from them. It's a great source of books, of rare tantric books and shastras and things like that, and images and things like that. If you know, Exotic India, exoticindia.com or exoticindianart.com or something. I forget the name. But in this version, in this book, you had that idea of Parshuram. We mentioned Parshuram. Parshuram is an incarnation in devotional Vaishnavism. In the Bhagavatam, it's like he's one of the avatars of Vishnu, right? And Parshuram, he's the Ram who holds an axe. So you ever see pictures of a form of Vishnu holding an axe? There's three Ramas. There's Balaram who holds Haldaram, or Balaram who holds a plow. That's Krishna's brother. There's Kodandaram, the Lord Ramachandra, who holds a bow, and Parshuram, who holds an axe, right? And there's a long story. There's not a place to tell the story, but he's from a Brahmin family, a sage family, right? And Kshatriyas, the king and their army, killed his father, right? And he vowed, he says, this is the Kshatriyas, the ruling class, the military classes, overstepped their bounds, right? And so he behaved, it says, even though he was a Brahmin, and Brahmins have to be nonviolent, ahimsa is one of their main things, he behaved like the most furious and the most strong Kshatriya. And so he exterminated the entire Kshatriya race, right? And then with the blood of the Kshatriya, it's very gory, sorry, like that. With the blood of the Kshatriya race, he did pinda offerings to his ancestors at Kurukshetra, where the battle of Kurukshetra would eventually happen, this great battlefield, right? Very something. He did it once, but you know what happens? These Kshatriyas, they come back, right? So he did it again, and he did it again. 21 times he killed the entire Kshatriya race. In the story, whether or not that's even possible to do, it's a genocidal story, right? An entire section of society, right? At the end, you imagine he was very, very powerful. He had a tremendous power, right? And he considered it also like a form of Vishnu himself, so he had a lot of divine power, right? Right. But at the end of which, even after doing this, after wreaking vengeance, and not with vengeance, what's the term when you get back at somebody? Revenge, yeah, revenge. Thank you. He got revenge, right, and also proper punishment, right, and chastisement. That the order of society. You can see if the military is running everything, it's not a very nice situation in any country, right? So it got it like. But at the end of which, you can imagine after something so ghastly, even if it needed to be done, I'm not going to say it needs to be done, right? But it was done in the story. He still wasn't happy. Right, you can imagine even if you do something that you think you need to do or need to do doesn't mean it's going to make you happy. So even after doing this, he was still unhappy. So he meets a sage, and that sage said, he says, I'm still not happy. I think Somnath or something, I'm somewhere, it's the sage. It's here, but I don't want to spend 3 minutes looking for it, and we're late. And that sage says, no, you'll have to go to a great guru, and he'll teach you how to find peace, even after all this, right? And so he told you have to go to Dattatreya, right? He's there, right? So he goes to Dattatreya, he finds him in the forest, right? And he sees Dattatreya different. He has a Shakti, he has a girl with him, right? So he's naked, right? Not here, but he's naked, right? So he's a monk, right? But he has a Shakti, right? And he also has a big thing of wine, right? So this is like, where have I gone? Right? He says, but that sadhu wouldn't have directed me wrong. Maybe I'm missing something. So he goes and bows, and he goes, oh, great sage, it's like, I've come to ask you questions. And he goes, oh, it's like, nobody comes to ask me questions. Look at me. I'm naked. I'm a naked monk with a couple girlfriends and a lot of wine, right? That lots of girlfriends and wine is his avadhuta, right? He's showing that he's beyond, and he's like that, right? He says, no, I'm sure you have knowledge. Whatever this is, it's meant to test me or whatever. There's some different version like that. And so then he begins to inquire, right, how the spiritual teaching. So I wanted to just read a few lines of only recently available book. In the last 5 years or something, we got this book maybe 10 years ago or something. Let me find it here real quick. There's only a few pages here. So Dattatreya speaks. O son of Jamadagni, this is a name for Parshuram. My child, you have rightly decided. Attainment of self-knowledge. He's actually realized he needs self-knowledge. The only thing that's going to make him happy is to know the self, right? Is preeminent, and which is very difficult to get even by searching. You can search for it, but it doesn't mean you get it easily, right? It is a wonder in this world that it's a gendered language. In this world, man thinks about it is a wonder in this world if anybody thinks of self-realization. The search for the self is not to be thought of as a small thing or a small benefit. Attainment to self-knowledge, so this is the words of Dattatreya, right? Attainment to self-knowledge is the essence and the great benefit that is truly everlasting in human life. Verily, people continuously long for pleasures obtained through sense organs that are truly magical in nature. Magical means like a magic trick. You do like that, then you create something. It's not real, not lasting, right? Not finding solace in sense pleasure, people bound by the noose of death go from one body to another, in cycle after cycle. So this is the cause of reincarnation, right? People always experience high, low, and middle stages that are futile accordingly, as if trapped in a cogwheel. High births, low births, good lives, bad lives, right? O Parashurama, I am pleased with your unwavering faith. Tell me about your desire that has brought you here. Then now he's hearing the words of Dattatreya, the happy Parashurama who found his guru, humbly prostrated before and taking his seat, spoke sweetly to him with folded palms. O eminent Guru, O Lord, when you are pleased, what is there that is not attainable here and hereafter? Just like a person desiring a diamond gets a mountain of gems, I have come to a great one like you. O Guru, for a long time roaming in this worldly life, I have never gained even a little bit of happiness or solace. Caught and burnt in the blazing fire of desires and anger, I have spent a long time. I have never felt any inner cool anywhere. In this world, all men, women, animals, creatures of sea, birds, and the wealthy, the poor, kings, emperors, monarchs, Gandharvas, Yakshas, Siddhas, Vijayadas, serpents, snakes, demons, even Indra, the moon, and the like are always being burnt by the great fire of desire. Therefore, make me remain cool like the elephant in the middle of the Ganga while the forest is on fire. O Lord, similarly let me be suitably instructed by you. Hearing his words, the great sage Dattatreya uttered auspicious words that pleased Parashurama. O Rama, listen carefully to my words. All of you, listen carefully to his words. The good desire that has been expressed by you, who is pure, is the root of auspiciousness. Truly you have gathered the grace of the Devi. So the fact that in the Avadhuta Gita, by the grace of Ishvara, by the grace of God, one thinks of Advaita. Here also, it's by the grace of the Devi that one has a desire to know the self. So it's interesting. Here to know the self is by the desire, by the grace of the Devi. Your good deeds of many past births have borne fruit. This type of grace is never acquired by small deeds. The fruit of your good deeds in the past are really supreme. O Rama, listen to me with openness of mind. Your desire is most comforting. It cannot be realized any time without wisdom. So your desire for peace can only be got by wisdom. So now how do you get wisdom? Truly, Pada Shiva, the supreme Shiva, is the self of all creatures. The individual soul under the influence of Maya does not understand the supreme. It remains shrunk due to the shrinking of all powers. This is the truth here. Nothing else shines. Other than the shining self, nothing else there is nothing else. Self-luminous is what is seen as self. Consciousness, right? There is no difference between them. Self and self-luminous is no difference. The power of the self is really the illumination. The shining self is Paramashiva. He alone who is eternal, by his pure power shines everywhere in multiple wonderful forms. He who shines always is the self of the entire universe. Though he is self-luminous, he appears dull because of delusion. That means everything we see as dull and insentient is because of illusion. This is shining. This is the self. This is pure consciousness. Once he is known, the delusion disappears and he shines in and out like an island in the Ganga that is very cool. By no other crores of means, millions of other methods, other than self-knowledge, can one attain cool serenity. Only the knowledge of the self brings serenity. That's the point being made. Right? Self-knowledge is difficult to obtain in this world and is invisible to persons engaged in sensual pursuits. Without the grace of Parashakti, self-knowledge cannot be had at any time. This is the punchline in a book on Devi, Shakta book on Tantra, right? Only by the grace of Parashakti, of the Supreme Divine Mother, the Goddess, that the self can be known. So everyone should begin to worship Tripurambika, a beautiful name. We heard of Tripura Sundari, right? The one who's the most beautiful of the three worlds, or beauty in the three worlds. I like this name, Tripurambika, the mother of the three worlds, right? And that service to her is impossible through crores of births, but for devotion to her. So self-knowledge is only available by her grace, right? Right? That grace is only comes through service of her, and service to her only comes by devotion. Right, so self-knowledge comes by Mother's grace. Mother's grace comes from service of her. Service of her only comes, you wouldn't serve her without devotion. How do we get devotion is the question. That's, if we want self-knowledge, according to Dattatreya, whose birthday we're celebrating today, right? How do we get self-knowledge? Only by devotion to the Goddess. How do we get devotion? And devotion to her is achieved only to listening to her glory. This is the Mahatmya, the glory, the listening to the glories of the Goddess, right? Therefore, people should, with perseverance and faith, listen to and sing the transcendental glories of Tripurambika. By this process, Devi herself will grant unswerving devotion towards her. Listen to her glories, right? And she will grant unswerving devotion. And by such devoted supreme service, one attains the state of fearlessness. There is no other path at all to reach that state. Hence, this is the punchline, therefore, to begin with, one should listen to her glories with utmost faith. Then alone confers all wants. This alone confers all wants, or grants all desires, like a kalpataru, it means a wish-fulfilling tree. Thus ends the 6th chapter of the Mahatmya Khandam of Sri Tripura Rahasyam. So, this is a very interesting claim. The self-knowledge, this knowledge of Advaita, the knowledge of the self, knowledge of yoga, whatever the experience we're searching, is only possible by the Divine Mother's grace. That comes through serving her comes through devotion, and devotion comes by listening to her glories. Thus is the reason why we have these satsangs. This is the reason why we sing kirtan. This is the reason why we should read the texts, the stories of saints, right? And so this is a setup. Now I'm ready to give the class on Kali Sahasranama, right? But we're now out of time, so we'll have to wait. You have to wait to get you'll have to listen next week and to get devotion, to get service, to get her grace, and therefore attain self-knowledge next week. That's something to look forward to next week, right? But by hearing, but by meditating on these names and qualities and glories, stories, forms, saints of, stories of the heroic saints of the Divine Mother, devotion awakens. There's no other way. I can't say, I don't want to be like there's no other way, But in the devotional tradition, so devotion is required even for knowledge. So sometimes we make a distinction. There's a path of knowledge and a path of bhakti, and they both hold, and they're both different, right? But this is another tradition that holds that the way to knowledge is through bhakti, right? There's a tradition to say you don't need knowledge at all. Bhakti is what saves you, right? It's a vision. It depends on what tradition holds is the problem. This holds that ignorance of the truth is the problem, right? And therefore only knowledge removes it, can be salvation. In some of the devotion tradition, is lack of devotion is a problem, and therefore only devotion can bring salvation, right? But this is you can see this is the jnana. Tripura Rahasya. That's why Ramana Maharishi was a strong jnani, right? Really pushed this text and loved this text and popularized this text, right? Knowledge alone leads to liberation. Right? What we're lacking is ignorance is the cause of problems, and knowledge alone is solution, right? But still, devotion is still part of it. Without devotion, it's not possible, right? Our Guruji, Swami Bhajanananda, he would tell me that bhakti, it says jnana without bhakti. He says bhakti without jnana, I remember, is incomplete, right? You can have bhakti. So he also believed bhakti is, but you need jnana. Otherwise, just bhakti without knowledge, he was incomplete, right? He says, but jnana but jnana without bhakti. Did I say that right? Bhakti without jnana is incomplete. Bhakti and jnana without bhakti is impossible, right? It's like, so bhakti is without jnana is incomplete, but jnana without bhakti is impossible, right? Without devotion, you cannot have knowledge. This is you can see this our tradition is even if he has an emphasis of jnana, right? Being a Vedantics or Dashanami sannyasis of the Vedantic order like that, without devotion it's impossible. And devotion without knowledge, possible, but incomplete. I like this language is very careful. He used that language very carefully. Well, thank you for your kind attention. This is our glorification meditation on Guru Dattatreya, the proto-guru. I think I've added it to our writing on Dattatreya we post every year. You use the term headwaters. It's the headwaters of many streams, right? The headwaters are the things where rivers come from. He's the headwater I want to say every tradition, right? But maybe I'll be over-speaking. On this day, he's the headwater of every tradition. So maybe there was a yogi in ancient times named Dattatreya, or who we now call Dattatreya, that started all this. Could be like that, or he represents the truth. He is the truth itself, shining, unbounded, right? The Brahman itself. That's the source of every tradition, right? And the goal of every tradition, and the path and the revealer of every tradition. So. Jai Guru Dattatreya ki jai. Digambaraya vidmahe yogeshwaraya dhimahi tanno datta prachodayat. Jai Guru, Om Tat Sat, Jai, what is it? Jai Om Tat Sat, Jai Guru Dat. Jai Guru Dat Om Tat. There's a mantra like that, so, in the Dattatreya tradition. So there'll be a great time for questions, but we have to do Arati. Another book I have, a rare book, out of print now, but maybe you can look for online. Sadguru Dattatreya by Sant Keshava Das. Right, it's full of songs and mantras and stories. Rare book, it's nice to have. Jai Guru. Okay. Om Sri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om Ganagayavade Gambhavahe Kavim Kavina Pavasravastamam Yeshirajam Ramaram Brahmanaspadahana Kanmanopadesakasaranam Om Sri Manmahaganapataye Namaha Lakshminarayanavyam Namaha Umamaheshwaravyam Namaha Bandhiranyagarbhavyam Namaha Sattvakundarabhyam Namaha Ishtadevatavyam Namaha Kuladevatavyam Namaha Gramadevatavyam Namaha Vasadevatavyam Namaha Sarvatavyam Sarvebhyam Sarvabhyo Devibhyo Namaha Om Sarvanga Mangalyam Varinyam Varanam Shrimam Narayanam Namaskritya Sarvakarmani Karyat Om Aimatvatattam Shuryami Swaha Om Rim Vidatattam Shuryami Swaha Om Klim Shivatattam Shuryami Swaha Om Aim Vim Klim Sarvatattam Shuryami Swam Vishnu Vishnu Vishnum Dar Vishnu Varam Varam Sarapishnu Sarvajiva Shukratadam Om Avivida Vidrova Sarvavastam Gajopiva Yashvri Pundari Kaksham Sabhaya Dayandra Suchihi Sri Vishnu Sri Vishnu Sri Vishnu Om Krim Vishnu Satsat Om Vamittasmai Sudavayam Strai Vrobhung Yang Rangbau Shatavang Hring 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 Mahakala Vairava Sahita Om Kring Samadakshina Karagaya Devi Amritmahare Viryami Namaha Idam Panaduram Gunashra Karagaya Devi Madhye Madamritam Panyam Samarpayami. Om Indrajaya Mahayantraya Dimhi Tanno Yantra Prachodayat. Om Dipaya Namam Dipaya Namam Dipaya Namaha. Om Vang Hring 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 Nam Naividam Iram Paditi Mahakala Vairava Saitam Dakshinagari Artadevam Darshayami Namaha. Jai Ma Jaya Jaya Ma Jai Ma Jai Ma Jaya Jaya Ma Jai Ma Jai Ma Jaya Jaya Ma Jai Ma Bhavatarini Dakshina Kali ki Jai Bhagavan Sri Ramakrishna Paramahansa Dev ki Jai Jai Bhagavan Sri Ramakrishna Paramahansa Dev ki Jai Jagannatha Sri Sharada Devi ki Yugacharya Swami Vivekananda Maharaji ki Jai Purna Tirudrakini Shriram ki Jai Namak Parvati Pataye Har Har Jai Guru Om Tat Sat. Jai Guru Tat.
भवतारिणी दक्षिण काली की
Pass the mic to me.
Good enough?
Alak Niranjana Jaya Bhava Bhanjana Alak Niranjana Bhava Bhaya Bhanjana Alak Niranjana Bhava Bhaya Bhanjana Alak Niranjana Bhava Bhaya Bhanjana Narayan
Sarva Mangala Mangale Shive Sarvartha Sarike Sharanye Trambake Gauri Narayani Namaste Sristi Stiti Vinashanam Shakti Bhute Sanatani Gunashraye Gunamai Narayani Namaste Sharanagata Dinartha Paritrana Parayane Sarvasyatri Hare Narayani Namaste Jaya Narayani Namaste Jaya Narayani Namaste Jaya Narayani Namaste Jaya Narayani Namaste Jai Mahamaya ki Jai Jai Bhagavan Sri Ramakrishna Deva ki Jai Jai Swamiji Maharaj Ji ki Jai Jai Avadhuta Dattatreya Bhagavan ki Jai Jai Ma Dakshineshwari Bhavatarini Dakshina Kali ki Jai Jai Guru Jai Ma. Boom. Shankar Mahadev.
The train went too fast for you.
My arms started to get tired after a while.
I was impressed.